interesting, but you keep on seeing this criticism pop up about the fighters not getting paid enough.
Yes.
And then maybe we should bring up the tweet. But Jake Paul, who is continued to do something so fucking amazing. The gravity this kid has been creating around him is unbelievable. The entire arena is chanting "fuck Jake Paul."
Yeah.
At an MMA card, UFC 261, which is one of the most interesting MMA cards in history. Yeah. It's not like it was boring.
Right.
And they're distracted and looking for any bit of distractions. Yeah. Like, all right, let's just say fuck Jake Paul. Every fight is fucking scintillating, and he still gets the arena.
And the first time everyone got together. First time.
What's that?
First time you have a stadium full of people, and they're chanting his name.
The first fucking time. And I know that's driving Dana White crazy. Absolutely fucking crazy.
And the fighters. Daniel Cormier going and talking shit to him. Kamaru, when we got brought up, was like, yeah, man, that kid, like you can see he feels a way. Everybody feels a way about this kid.
Yep.
And that's that's part of his genius, really. Yeah.
Bro,
that's his marketing.
You saw him standing up, like taking pictures when everyone's chanting, and he's just looking at him.
Yep.
Yeah.
The kid knows what he's doing, man. And so he posts this on Twitter. He goes at Dana White. Dana, you claimed that you would bet $1 million on me losing. Set up Askren to train with Freddie Roach, gave him full access to UFC PI, and he still got his ass handed to him. Seems like you are the real douche, not Ariel. In my third fight, I made more in total pay than any fighter in UFC history. Maybe it's time to pay your fighters their fair share. No wonder they all want to get into boxing. Dana, you say you make the fights the fans want to see, so hurry up and make Jones versus Ngannou. Pay them their fair share. $10 million purse for each guy, plus pay-per-view. Why are UFC fighters so underpaid versus boxers? Why did I make more in my third fight than all but two, Khabib and Conor, UFC fighters have in history? I know why, ...
No spelling mistakes.
Dude, that doesn't impress me. Bro. He hit the right there.
The right there, like syntax.
He's only had
perfect.
3 fights.
Yeah.
Give him 10, 15 fights. There'll be some spelling mistakes for sure.
But it's well written.
It's a fucking great point, dude.
So what's really interesting about this is he's driving the wedge between the fighters and Dana.
Yeah.
And I thought Dana did a very good job of like keeping the fighters on his side. The fighters seem very grateful for Dana. Mm-hmm. And probably because he kept them working, i.e. fighting, during the pandemic.
Right.
And if you're a fighter who makes their living fighting and you can't even be around other people, it must be terrifying. How am I going to feed my family? Like, oh shit, this guy's working hard to make sure we can keep fighting and keep getting paid. Thank you so much. Salvation. But he's driving the wedge between fighters and Dana, and now between fans and Dana. Right. The fans want Jones and Ngannou. He's saying Dana is stopping that from happening and Dana's alleged greediness.
Yeah.
Now, who knows if Dana is being greedy with that money? Yeah. I'm really curious to hear what Dana's spending on building the UFC itself.
Yeah.
Because it is undeniable that these fighters get to take advantage of the brand that the UFC is.
Yeah.
You immediately fight on the UFC, and all of a sudden you are legitimized. They're going to build you up, and if you have exciting fights, they're going to make you a fucking superstar on their platform. That costs money. I don't know how many millions it costs. I don't know how much less they have to pay fighters versus boxing, where you don't do that for your fighter. But I'm curious, if I was a young fighter, if that'd be worth it. If I'd be willing to take that percentage of my pay and give it back to the promotional company and have them do it. Or if a young fighter would go, hey, just pay me the full amount, I'll take care of my own promo.
Right.
But maybe the UFC goes, we're better at it than you.
Yeah.
You will make more money if you go along this. And the guys that are at the top, they might not be making those fucking $50, $100 million. They're not starving.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, is he still making millions? Is he making the company tens of millions? Yes. Should he get more because he's making them? Some would say yes. I would say yes just because he can promote shit outside of what the UFC can do. But there are boring fighters that need that UFC promo. And it's worth whatever they're taking out of their salary because they wouldn't get those fights because they're too boring outside of the fight itself.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Not to mention, without UFC existing, what was the alternative before that? You know what I mean? Like, obviously, the Bellator and things like that. But, like, if you're a young, mixed martial artist in, like, 2005, like, even, like,
the K1 tournaments were really big out there in Japan.
And were they making money?
Pride. I think K1 was purchased by Pride or vice versa. But yeah, I don't know if they were making tons of money, to be honest, and I doubt it.
You could argue the rising tide of UFC just lifts all ships. That would be his problem.
So that's what I would be curious about. Like, these fighters are making maybe not as much as they're supposed to be paid by the promotion or whatever, but they're making more than they would have gotten paid had this thing not existed.
Yeah.
Like, 100%. I don't know what the average fighter salary was prior to.
Like, the counter could be, sure, you don't get paid like boxers. Boxing is also dying. So
that's the other thing that people don't realize about boxers, right? It's like you see the top of the top making all this money.
Yeah.
And the bottom of the bottom make nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think the bottom of the bottom boxers are making more than UFC fighters.
Right.
Like, I would argue that there are more UFC fighters that are making a functional living. In other words, they can eat just off their UFC money than there are boxers.
Mm-hmm.
Just the top of the top in boxing is what makes all the money.
Right.
So that money in the UFC is spread over far more fighters, which if you're a UFC fighter for a living, chances are you're not going to be the top of the top. So it's nice that you can make a fucking living doing the thing that you love, even though it's very dangerous. Whereas a boxer, you're basically working as well as boxing until you get a sponsor, which is a rich guy that wants a piece of your purse in perpetuity, or you get a huge fucking fight. But most boxers have fucking day jobs. I guess a lot of UFC guys do as well. I'm just saying it's quicker to get to that middle tier. Who knows if it's right?